There are games that I don't enjoy and that I don't want to enjoy. Then there are games that I don't care for, but I want very deeply to care for. Whether they have a popular creative fandom that I want to be a part of, they promise hours and hours of content that I can't bring myself to indulge in, or just contain some petty hangups that I can't get around. The criteria for this list is simple. I'm judging these particular games on how much I want to like them, but can't. Here we go. Bravely Default has been hailed as a return to form for Square's JRPGs. As a person who enjoyed Super Mario RPG along with Final Fantasies 4 and 6, I was pretty excited to try this new game out. So, in order to experience this new legend, I traveled far and wide to the perilous land known as GameStop. I went through the perilous trial of paying $30. I received the game. I played the game! I stopped after the second level. You know, when they said this was a return to form, well, frankly, I don't know what I expected. Main character's village gets blown up by airships. Start traveling with magical damsel that turns out to be linked to the villain in some way. Yeah, that sounds like a Square Enix game to me. I wasn't really invested in these characters, and I think that's partially due to the art style not allowing for much in the way of expression. I found several of these characters blander than uncooked spaghetti, except for one character who I swear has situational personality trait syndrome. Some moments she's, "Don't take no crap from no one, my duty is everything," and other times she's a meek little princess. Lady, pick a trope! I at least understand where the appeal for this game comes from. It really does feel like an old school JRPG, which Square Enix has been slowly distancing itself from. I also think the ability to be able to stack your turns or sacrifice turns for more turns is a creative way to spice up the traditional JRPG formula. While I think the job system could have been conveyed to the player more effectively, it was definitely a solid addition. It's definitely a grinding game, but hey, a lot of people find that fun, and sometimes I find that fun. Sometimes. Occasionally. Not really a lot, no. Oh my gosh, you see Toolset Games everywhere these days, especially Minecraft. With that game alone, the amount of content relating to it online makes me feel like I'm at a university party. Everyone's drinking and looks like they're having a good time, yet I'm bumming in the corner on my smartphone having to deal with my drunk friends, and trying not to remember that I have to transport their drunk butts home. Wait, this analogy got away from me. With games like these and others such as Super Mario Maker or Little Big Planet, you're limited only by your imagination. I want to ride the hop coaster! Gimme! Personally, I'm just not a fan of games where you have to make your own fun. I played them for a little bit, but then I just stop. Instead, I find myself more interested in what others are putting into them rather than mustering the motivation to do creations of my own, or at least more than once or twice. On that tangent, I have created a few levels on Super Mario Maker, so if you guys want to check those out, be warned, these are made by a guy who found the perfect run in Super Mario Galaxy 2 easy. But on that note... these games are so friggin' hard! Sometimes I do like a challenge, but there's a difference between challenging and sadism. I just don't have the patience for these games. Now, I've looked at playthroughs of the game because I can't finish it. I just can't. And many times, I have a hard time discerning when the game is legitimately challenging the player or trolling the player, especially with the traps that you can almost never see coming until you actually step on them. I can almost see the developers in their offices giving each other smug smiles and wistfully fantasizing about our suffering. But even then, I didn't find the combat very fulfilling or exciting, and the health for bosses drops way too slowly for me to want to stay engaged. While the game does have a dreary and ugly aesthetic, it actually kind of works to its favor, seeing as it helps impose an atmosphere of hopelessness and despair on you, and there's a lot of effort put into the creature designs and architecture. I'll be honest, it even managed to get me interested in the lore a little bit too. People tell me the biggest appeal to these games is the strong sense of accomplishment you get from working so hard to finally defeat a challenging foe. Fair enough, but I think I get the same rush from Dynasty Warriors.
Another obstacle in the path of justice has fallen before me.
Another 1,000. Who's next? Here's the biggest weakness with horror games for me. I can't get scared.
mostly get scared.
The most a game has been able to scare me lately is getting me to flinch a little. I don't know, maybe those top secret nanomachine injections back at the Marines may be impervious to fear. Granted, that's not really for a lack of trying, because clearly a lot of these games do understand what makes something scary. I feel the whole draw with horror games is reinforcing three things: fear, anxiety, and surprise. Fear is when you are faced with a present danger, like a necromorph jumping out of a vent or Resident Evil 4's regenerators. Anxiety is the anticipation that something dangerous is or might be coming, like Five Nights or Metroid Fusion. Surprise would be unexpected danger, a completely foreign element thrown into the mix like the Wallmaster or... But yeah, that's where I have my problem. Whenever I play a horror game, I've always reacted to present danger with a sense of relaxation. Even though in many games I was aware of the present danger, I was always relaxed and alert, ready to face the danger I knew was coming. When the danger came, I developed tunnel vision and was able to focus on the problem and how to overcome it. I mean, if I wasn't able to, I think I'd make a pretty crappy Marine. With anxiety, my default coping mechanism is humor. When I played SCP Containment Breach, I was like, oh, so the monster only wants to move when I'm not looking at it. Good gravy, I'm being stalked by Fluttershy.
Yes, I took Giggle at the Ghosties to heart, sue me.
Now with surprise, my default reaction is anger, oddly enough. When I was younger, these would usually be the moments that would make me cry and not touch the game again for several weeks. If I encountered such a moment nowadays, I'd be angry at the game for delivering such a cheap shot. So I'm kind of in a weird position where I want to be scared because then I could enjoy these games as much as everyone else and make millions screaming my head off at jump scares, but at the same time, I don't want to lose the ways I've developed handling myself in dangerous situations. Quite the paradox. I have to admit, some of the reasons that I dislike this game are me just being spiteful. I get a lot of flack for enjoying Call of Duty, which is considered by many to be horrible because they release the same game every time with minor tweaks. Those never bother me because even though these games were essentially the same, I still enjoyed them, and they usually changed or added enough so that they didn't feel too similar to previous entries. So when Super Mario Galaxy 2 was getting praised for what I feel was the exact same thing Call of Duty was doing, needless to say, I felt my underdog complex tingling. Now, if I put my mind to it, I could probably get over it, but here are my real issues that prevent me from doing just that. Everyone went absolutely gaga over Yoshi's inclusion, and I do get it. Yoshi's a good excuse to add new and creative power-ups, which makes the game feel a little more like Super Mario World, but I think it didn't do it for me because I didn't think the power-ups and abilities Yoshi offered were all that entertaining or spectacular. And I think most people agree the hidden green stars are hardly fun to find and only serve to pad out the game an additional 5 to 6 hours. We also had a wonderfully designed character with an interesting backstory being replaced with Patrick.
May I take your hat, sir? May I take your hat, sir?
Also, the Comet Observatory is vastly superior to Starship Mario. Final reason, and this is the big one, I found Super Mario Galaxy 2 too easy. Admittedly, some of the levels do get challenging further in, but unfortunately, it takes far too long to get there. I shouldn't have to work for my decent challenge. I've grown up with Mario, starting with Super Mario Bros. 3 and played every single one up until now. It's gotten to the point where nothing Mario does surprises me anymore. As a result, I've gotten so frustrated that I've gone looking for immediately accessible, yet challenging Mario levels. Thank you, Super Mario Maker, for making me realize I am a Mario masochist. I went into Okami looking for a replayable adventure, a game like Zelda or Mario that I could replay at any time when I was feeling nostalgic. Upsettingly, I didn't get it. Instead, I got a game that I felt had problems with conveying my objectives, forcing me to fight several bosses to pad out the game, and freaking circles! Why won't you work? I feel like the game is a little too proud of its combat. I mean, when you enter combat, heavy music starts playing, the walls burst into flame, and overall it looks rather epic. I would be fine with that if the combat had more depth than just waggling the remote or pressing a single button. Oh sure, there are enemies that go beyond that, but they often require convoluted and tedious ways to kill them every time you go into battle. Implementing the brush powers into the combat was new and interesting, and it made beating down the game's bosses enjoyable. When it worked. Many times the game wouldn't register the thing I told it to do, and in bosses where that was a requirement to succeed, it made me just the tiniest bit
Exceedingly indignant.
Okay, criticisms aside, the game really is pretty. Part of the magic of this game is seeing these desolate wastelands being transformed into lush landscapes. And in hindsight, the humor of the game did work pretty well, often extending to the cast of townsfolk. Combine the two, and there's definitely a lot of potential for investment in Okami. As much as I wasn't.
Also, digging minigames.
Wow.
I am a huge fan of Undertale. I search for fan art. I look up fan animations. I nerd out with other fans over the family dynamics of the characters. I love this game, but I don't love the actual game, if that makes sense.
No, it doesn't.
I suppose I should start off with the things I don't like. Some of the humor relies too heavily on in-jokes or trying too hard to be mimetic. I'm really half and half in terms of the game's music and aesthetic. I like much of the game's music, but the transitions between 8-bit and orchestrated in a lot of places were a little jarring. I can tell many of the monster designs were supposed to be simple, but several times I felt like the designers were running out of ideas or were too in-jokey. The graphics themselves straddled the line between passable and, well, there's really no nice way to say it. Some of them look downright awful. The big thing, ironically, is it can be a little bit of a grind to have to spare the same monsters over and over the same way on the pacifist run. And this was the part that ultimately caused me to quit. No matter your methods, you cannot escape the grind.
So, what do I actually like? Well, everything else! Oh my gosh, Debbie's like the Undertale version of Derpy! So many cute dogs, Sans vampires have such an awesome dynamic! Go Mom is so amazing, Untied is so freaking cool and funny at the same time! All the fun buses are incredible, when the music's great, it's fantastic! I've listened to Megalovania and Hopes and Dreams over and over and over and over and over and over!
This segment of Top 10 Games I Want to Like has been cancelled, because Josh went insane. Even more so than usual.
The biggest factor for getting on this list is me feeling denied potential hundreds of hours of play using a creatable character. Here's number 3 on the list, Baldur's Gate. I went into a little bit of why I didn't like the game in my rant of nostalgic immunity, so I'll try not to restate too much here. The controls are quite unfriendly to newcomers who are used to more intuitive styles of play. Simple actions require far too many keystrokes, and much of the interface has really messed with what's considered comfortable in modern gaming. I really do want to like this game because the character creation is very D&D-like in how expansive it is, and I hear the story is very well written and engaging, but I just don't think it's worth the slog. Yes, this is how it plays, people. Ain't that exciting? The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion is one of my favorite games of all time, and albeit begrudgingly at first, I eventually began to enjoy Skyrim as well. So naturally, I was tempted to try Bethesda's other blockbuster franchise, Fallout. I managed to get my hands on both Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas through Steam sales, and I literally stopped playing after 103 minutes. New Vegas was worse at 36 minutes. Why?
They're so butt ugly!
The art style is, for lack of a better word, muddy. And yeah, that's the point. It's Fallout. But it still doesn't make it appeal to me. What's my motivation to explore this filthy wasteland and get stronger to keep on top of it all? This?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pass.
And that whole target limbs gimmick, yeah, that was cool the first time, but the novelty wore off really fast and it got repetitive. Also, the 40s cartoon character aesthetic that appears all throughout the game, I know it's supposed to be charming. Other people find it charming. Why don't I find it charming? I swear, I'm not being rhetorical when I ask this. What do you find charming about Fallout? I mean, it's gotta be popular for a reason, so let me know. It's frustrating because these games promise hours upon hours of content as a character whom I can choose how they look and behave. I can explore a world filled with adventures, surprises, and interesting lore at every turn. And to me, the Fallout games just didn't deliver. Fallout 4 looks like it's changed a few things that bugged me, namely the dreary visuals, so at some point I can give that a try and see if I enjoy it. But for now, I'll stick with Skyrim. It's funny, you know? I like the Elder Scrolls and I don't like Fallout, and they're both made by Bethesda. I like Dragon Age, I don't like Mass Effect, and they're both made by BioWare. Mass Effect certainly is one of the more unique action RPGs out there. For one, it has your morality be less of a good versus evil system, and instead opts for an interesting Paragon versus Renegade system. The characters that you get to interact with really made me care about them and their struggles. The stories have plenty of interesting twists and turns. Many times I was even shocked. It's one thing to just make a world feel alive and dynamic. Try making an entire universe feel alive and dynamic. I think these are great games, fantastic ones even. Why don't I like them?
The cover system. I really wish I had a better reason than this. No, really, that's about it. This is the one thing, just the one thing that is preventing me from enjoying a franchise, which by all accounts is a pretty awesome franchise. Yes, the cover system is preventing me from enjoying all of what was previously mentioned. I'm the Fiery Joker, and I frustrate me. Yeah, whatever.